8:35, we'll convene the retirement board session. And we have first thing as pledge allegiance. Kendall, do you want to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I didn't find any appointments.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I guess now we have roll call.
Ms. Shatmeyer?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Ms. Calvinus? Absent. Mr. Parker?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Walker? Absent. Mr. Knudsen?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Shoemaker? Absent. And Supervisor Drury?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, first thing on our agenda is public comment. Public comment, welcome. Do we have any today? Okay, don't see any. We'll go to the consent calendar where we have minutes of our special board meeting from September 13th.
To the 14th, that's a typo.
Yeah, 13th and 14th. And also our September 2015 retirement report, our quarterly trustee education and training report, and monthly preliminary financial reports. Any discussion on the consent calendar?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Well, if there are no changes, they'll be accepted as presented. Okay. Then we have discussion and possible action regarding the investment matters, the monthly preliminary investment report.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll jump in here. Trustees, you have the monthly performance report from Callan in your materials. You'll notice that the total fund at the end of September closed at $501,325,919. We thought about having some sort of celebration for hitting the $500 million mark, but then we thought better of it, because we don't want to have 7 of those as we go back, up and down, and up and down. So, just wanted to note that. The performance, just jumping to the bottom line, the total fund performance at the bottom of page 3, 1.94% for the month. It was a good month for us, about 50 basis points above our benchmark. And for the first quarter of the fiscal year preliminary, we have 4.39% return, 40 basis points almost above our benchmark. So,
And for the year so far?
that's the fiscal year so far, 4.39. It's listed here as the last 3 months, but that's the first quarter of the fiscal year. So continuing to see what we saw last fiscal year, the market just keeps plugging along, and we're getting great numbers. So
Remember this when we cry in the future. Maybe it will just go up forever.
Okay. So with that, any more discussion on the preliminary report? Not seeing any. So then we'll go on to discussion possible action on resolution 2017-05, defining compensation equal pursuant to government code for members who are not subject to government code section, so in other words, non-PEPRA members.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, we've been through these pay code resolutions a number of times. As the county is renegotiating its, with all its bargaining units, we have issues come up. This is just another one that we have a cleanup to take care of. Recommend approval. Jeff and I have been through this. It's very clear that this needs to be treated the way it is and included this item for the confidential unit in compensation earnable. So would recommend approval.
And this is near the last contract, I think.
We're hopeful.
I move we approve the resolution.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And now we have more or less the same thing for the PEPRA members.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, the exact same thing. We have two resolutions, one for the non-PEPRA members, one for PEPRA members. This pay item gets treated the same in both, so would recommend approval of Resolution 2017-06 as well.
I move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we're on to discussion possible action on the seventh resolution of the year stating authorized and rescinded signatures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, we have, with a lot of our vendors, they ask for a resolution of the board granting authorization to execute contracts and give directions. This is a resolution that does that for those who need it. We're making changes here to the resolution, or to the authorized signatures list, adding the retirement administrator to the authorized list and removing the former board chair from the authorized list. So now it will be both Stan and I that have authority to sign on behalf of the organization for any manager that needs a resolution stating that.
Yeah, I second.
Any discussion?
Just real quickly, what is the whereupon, and then there's the four, the chair, the vice chair, and secretary, and Judy, what is that dealing with?
That's just, signatures agreeing that this resolution was passed.
Okay.
Gotcha. I moved that down because it was gonna break across 2 pages, so I just moved the whereupon. So it's the second page of that resolution is all it is.
So that just has to do with approving the resolution. It's not that they have to sign
Correct,
any.
correct. That is approval of the resolution,
Okay.
not the signature authority. That is correct. The signature authority is just for myself and for Stan.
Okay.
And just so everybody's aware, the reason that the board chair was on here is because we had quite a bit of instability at this time with interim retirement administrators. And so that's why at that time, the stability was the chair, and as far as somebody that was here all the time. And so, yeah, that definitely is not needed anymore. We're very stable now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Times have really changed.
Times have really changed.
And thank you, Sherry, for doing that for us.
Okay, we have a motion. Any more discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Then we have discussion possible action regarding portable electronic device policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, as part of our policy review this quarter, the portable electronic device policy was due for review. I thought it almost prescient that we would review this policy as we're getting new devices to work with here. I've put forth some minor edits that I propose, just clarifying the language just a little bit. It's on the third page of the proposed policy. So if there are any other edits, I'd be happy, or recommended edits, I'd be happy to discuss those as well.
I move that it be adopted as amended.
Second.
Just some questions. Again, I'm new to this, but I was questioning the B1 and B4. Let me go back to those. It must be on page 2. Because it talks about personal use, and I guess that's what I was looking at, because it says in B1 that may make reasonable and limited personal use, and then in B4 it says not for general personal use. And so I guess I'm thinking, if you go to a conference, am I going to carry 2 computers or 2 iPads? Or, I mean, that's my question. It wasn't any of your changes, it's just the policy you had written
Right.
before.
The intent here is that you don't have to carry 2 devices. You can carry the iPad that we're providing to you and use it for some personal use. It's well within reason.
Okay.
You know, to look at a news feed or check a personal email account through that device, or check your flights or whatever is perfectly reasonable.
Okay.
You know, nothing inappropriate, obviously, that would be deemed inappropriate by the county's policies. Just
I
gotta say
understand
that.
that. Okay, but personal email and things if you're at a conference.
Absolutely fine, yes.
All right. And
No
they-
angry birds.
and they-
I didn't say no angry birds. I have no problem with you downloading a game onto these devices, as long as it doesn't impact its functionability. So,
And I'll take this opportunity again to remind the board that while you can have some personal use of the work iPad, I would not say the opposite is true. So I would discourage you from doing work-related stuff on your personal equipment for reasons that we've talked about before regarding Public Records Act requests.
Okay. Okay, and then the only other one I wanted to ask about on B3, it talks they're not solely assigned to individual trustees, used on an as-needed basis, but I understand we take them when we go places and stuff. It's just, it's not mine, I know that, so.
Correct.
Okay, just making sure I understand what that's.
there have been occasions where, you know, a trustee, with the previous devices, a trustee has said, I don't really need this, and we've held it here.
Mhm.
And a different trustee has had an issue with theirs, so we'll say, take this one.
Okay,
So it's that kind of thing. It's still owned by the association,
absolutely.
and if we need to make changes or shuffle things, we can do so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I wonder if there's a danger with these. For some reason, my earlier tablet went rogue. Is there a chance was that just because of a glitch in that tablet?
We believe that in this specific instance, it was because of that tablet, and it was only your tablet that did that. No one else's tablet went rogue, and that's a very
You pushed
Angry
wrong.
and it was
I was in Oregon, and it was.
and it was nothing that you did.
Yeah, now listen to what James said.
It was nothing.
There was
Dang,
nothing that
thank
you
you.
did is
All
what
right.
we are advised. It just truly was something about the device.
Yeah.
Evil spirits.
Yeah.
Gremlins.
Angry Birds.
We got it.
There's always a risk of something like that happening, but we think it's probably less of a risk with the iPads than with the previous devices. So,
Okay, we do have a motion on the table. Any other discussion of any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we're on to discussion of possible action regarding the State Association of Counties Retirement System, SACRS, fall business meeting for November 14th.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, you have all the business meeting materials for SACRS in your packet. There are two sets of items for us to address, and the board needs to give direction to our voting delegate as to how the board wishes to vote on 3 legislative proposals and and amendments to the bylaws. And I think I'll just take these in order, Mr. Chairman. The Ventura number 1 proposal would add a provision to the SERL to define surviving spouse to include only a spouse who is legally married to the member, is neither divorced nor legally separated from the member, and has lived with the member continuously from the date of marriage to the date of member's death. The legislative committee has voted to recommend that SACRS sponsor legislation to define surviving spouse, so retirement systems are not confused by the conflicting case law. And this is legislation for 2018 that's being proposed. This board will be asked to either vote in favor of SACRS sponsoring that or not in favor of SACRS sponsoring that.
I just was a little confused when it was talking about lived continuously.
Me too.
Yeah, it's like, so that means if somebody at some point in their marriage 30-year, 40-year marriage, but they were separated for a
Moved out
year
for
or
a
whatever,
while.
that means they don't qualify? I mean, that's kind of the way it
That's
reads
kind of
to
Yeah,
me.
it is.
Yeah.
That's reads. I would have a problem with that.
That was my question as well.
All of us women.
Yeah, absolutely. Yup.
Don't you guys have a problem with that?
Well, my
Anybody else
wife
have a
and I
problem?
lived apart for a year while she worked, so I
So
was
she's
wondering
not
about
gonna
that
be
for
your
me.
surviving
Well,
too.
that's, yeah, so that, I mean, just in that, it may be, yeah, someone's going to school and somebody's
From the service.
in the service,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I have real concerns with that language. It's
Not clear.
not clear.
Can we ask them to make that, the verbiage more appropriate?
I would have preferred that we get more information from the legislative committee than what we got. Essentially, what I'm reading here on the cover page is what we got. Oftentimes or part of the process for requesting this is the requesting entity has to put forth a lot more detail. And I didn't see that here when I reviewed all this. So,
So would people feel more comfortable if it was, we're living together at time of death?
So here's, I should know more about this as I'm sitting here right now than I do. I don't think that's the controversial language, and I think that's probably already in the existing language. And I think what that's designed to do is to stop someone from saying, if you marry me, you give me $50,000 and you'll be able to get 60% of my continuance. I think they're trying to get it a kind of a sham marriage. And I think that language is already in the statute. There's some conflicting case law, and the systems are trying to figure out what surviving spouse is. And I don't think that piece that you're focusing on is the controversial piece, and I think it's already existing in the CERL now.
It should be.
so
the controversial piece.
jumping to the better explanation, the recommendation is that to clarify the definition of surviving spouse means a person who has legally married the member is neither divorced nor legally separated from the member, is the spouse of the member at the time of the member's death, and who meets all other requirements of this chapter pertaining to the length of the marriage and the person's age at the time of the member's death. That language has nothing about lived continuously since marriage. So the issue was a legal separation.
Yes, that's.
And there was a court case in Ventura where there was a legally separated individual. The member died, I believe it was a safety member. And then the legal separation, the spouse, though legally separated, was granted survivorship benefits. And this would clarify that a legal separation essentially terminates those benefits.
That doesn't really clarify.
No,
This
it
language
doesn't.
doesn't clarify that.
It doesn't. So they're trying to tighten things up, but in tightening things up, it makes me hesitant to approve it because of the continuously living.
So,
And that's already in the statute, so that's not changing, that's not the focus of it. They're not changing that language at all. It has to do with legal separation
Yeah.
versus an
Marriage.
approved.
I mean, it stands reason if people are legally separated that they would not be entitled to continuing benefits.
Can, may I suggest that, would it be possible to conditionally approve this upon verification that the concern is resolved as you put it? In other words, you have a concern, you say that that's probably
There.
not the case. Can we approve this subject to verification of your opinion on the matter?
You mean that language is already in the statute?
Yeah.
That they're not changing that?
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
That allows staff to move forward if subject, their verification of that, they have our approval to go ahead with it.
Is that a motion?
Yes, very poorly put.
Then I'll poorly second it.
Judy, do you have the motion sufficiently recorded there?
Tentatively approve the legislative item pending Jeff Burke's opinion on language included in the survey.
Okay.
Or approve subject to,
Approve
not
subject to.
tentatively, but
Approve.
approve subject to.
Okay, so I'll remove tentative. Approve subject to Jeff Burke's opinion. Okay.
So, and
Did you-
I believe the technical motion would be to give guidance to MSARA's voting delegate to vote in favor of Ventura proposal number 1, pending
Verification.
verification. So,
I just have a question on that. When they talk about the continuance, if they've been married for a lot of years and wouldn't, I mean, they'd get a piece of the retirement anyway, and wouldn't they get that, doesn't that stay continued anyway? I mean, if they get.
who is they?
Anybody. I'm saying as an example, if somebody's married for 25 years and there's a divorce, so so they wouldn't qualify, according to this, for continuation benefits. But yet, if they get a piece of retirement, if they, if it's already separated out, they get a piece of retirement, they would, that individual would still have, I mean, they would still get that retirement.
If there's a court order. That's all gonna be driven by the domestic relations order.
But you're correct.
Okay.
It's two separate things.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now we meet again November 1st before, and that's before SACRS. Could this be settled before we go to SACRS? Yep.
Absolutely.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
So we could vote
you could.
without any provisions at our November 1st meeting.
If it's the board's pleasure, we could bring it back November 1st and do it without provisions, or we can do it here with the provision and we'll settle it and then give the direction to the voting delegate.
That's the motion.
Yeah. The motion, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so then,
Okay, Ventura proposal number 2 was not recommended by the legislative committee, so I believe the board needs to take no action there. And the Tulare recommendation proposal was also not recommended by the legislative committee of SACRS. So I believe there's no action that we would need to take there. Judy, is that? I don't think we need to be prepared to vote on those, do we?
It would just be
I don't think so.
direction to the delegate, but
so if the legislative committee does not recommends not moving forward with it, then it doesn't go to the floor for a vote, is that?
Sounds like.
I think that's the process.
Tim, have you been a voting delegate in the past? Is that your experience?
A long time ago.
I think that's how it works for our state association. If it doesn't get past the legislative committee, it doesn't ever make it to the full body.
That doesn't mean it goes away. It can come back again.
Right.
Right.
But it won't.
The final piece of business here is the recommended changes to the bylaws. You have those as a separate document in markup form.
He's just got a dog here.
I've reviewed those. I think there's some very positive changes to the SACRS bylaws here, expanding the board of directors, clarifying that the immediate past, or removing the immediate past president from a board officer position, but still being on the board of directors for the organization. Adding 2 directors at large position. And just tightening up language across a lot of the document. So I would recommend that we support the bylaw changes.
I move we support the bylaw changes as presented.
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. I guess we're now on to 8, which is discussion regarding bookkeeping and data security.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We thought it pertinent to have a discussion with the trustees about record keeping and data security in light of recent events. A lot of you at the table will recall, there is no item here. There was nothing distributed.
That's good.
Many of you will recall a short 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago when I arrived, we had a wall full of file cabinets, about 40 feet of file cabinets there with paper records in them. Those are all now gone. All of those records are digitized. They are stored off-site. The Pension Gold, Levi Ray Shoup is the company that developed Pension Gold. They host all our data for us. So all of our data is stored on servers in Springfield, Illinois. They have a nightly backup of all of our data that is stored in Bloomington, about 65 miles away on a separate power grid.
In Bloomington, Illinois,
Yes.
where my husband was born.
So, it was a high priority item for me when I got here to address that issue for disaster recovery, business continuity type of issue. We've done a lot of things to address those types of issues, including the digitizing all those records. That's also an efficiency issue for us. Having a custodial bank, I think, is very, very critical there as well, because State Street is one of the largest custodial banks, and they have backups on backups on backups. So all of our financial data is out there, very, very secure. Our member records are treated similarly now. Another important piece, I think, of our disaster recovery plan is the telework policy that we have, and the ability to work from essentially anywhere. We could pick up our people and go get a conference room at a hotel as long as they have Wi-Fi, and we could keep doing all of our work except for the phone lines, and make sure we get things out. So we've made a lot of progress there. I feel really good about how far we've come in the 3 years we've been here. But I did want to talk about that and be available to answer any questions and give trustees the opportunity to share thoughts or anything you want to talk about here.
So that means we have it here and in Bloomington, Illinois, in both places?
The data,
Or just the ability?
well, we have the ability to access the Pension Gold from anywhere.
Right. But if something happened in Bloomington?
If something happened in Springfield, they also have a data backup in Bloomington.
Okay, so there's two back there. Okay.
Yes, yeah. It's hosted primarily in Springfield. Their backup is in Bloomington.
Okay.
And what if they both have problems?
The,
What, 60 miles apart?
Well,
They're
no, I mean, just
65
what we
miles
just went
apart.
through, yeah.
but it's two separate power grids, which is a very important factor. If it's 65 miles apart but the same power grid, you don't really have backups. The likelihood of something happening to both Springfield and Bloomington is relatively low.
Like here. Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
The odds of what happened a week ago was very low.
Right.
Yeah. So with that in mind and that everybody's living through it, should we have a conversation with them to spread that out a little bit? Is there a way that they can get more than 60 miles away from each other?
We can certainly have a conversation with them about it and see if there's what else they're considering, and get an understanding of their level of comfort with that distance, and if there needs to be more between the two.
But
Redwood Valley and Santa Rosa are 60 miles apart, they're on different power grids.
yeah, and our
And they
comfort
both could have very easily lost everything in
Yeah.
both
and
areas.
prior, yeah,
I'd want it in Kansas
Doesn't
or
have
something.
forest fires.
yeah. They can. Who knows though what they have tornadoes.
They do.
Yeah, I mean it's what happened here. It just
Right.
really brings it to the forefront.
It surely does.
Yeah, I I mean, I would have been comfortable with that 2 weeks ago, but I'm not as comfortable with it now.
Right.
Is there any kind of option for a third-party backup with like Amazon or, another large provider, maybe?
We can certainly explore that.
If they don't do it internally.
I think it's huge that it's been done, to think that all those records and their vulnerability
Oh, yeah.
being in one place. So this is monstrous leap forward, but we all think differently.
Right.
Today.
There's, we can certainly explore some options to see what's available to us. One of the things that we may want to think about is storing records here, just electronic.
Yeah.
We can go potentially purchase a hard drive and just download all of our data there. We want to think carefully about that because if you do that, it's then, we have to manage some sort of process to do that on a regular recurring basis. But it's something that we could do. So we'll think about that more in the days and weeks to come. But I just wanted to get the conversation started.
And I would probably agree with what Pat said as far as to have a third, if we had a third site somewhere else even, that was spread out. I mean, if that's something that they have available.
Okay.
But kudos getting it done.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, when you think about how vulnerable we were, given what's happened, and it was all here, it was all paper. Scary.
Mhm.
And I know I don't necessarily want to say too much in a televised meeting, but in terms of data security and the preventative measures we have in place for phishing and all those other types of attacks, are we pretty confident about that right now? Or is there anything that we should do in that area?
There's always more you can do in terms of data security. We rely heavily on our service providers for providing security with our data. We do get updates from a number of those security provider or service providers about data security issues. We are aware that there have been a number of cases specifically involving retirement plans where individuals have gained information from other sources and then attempted to create a client account through the portal type of approach. And I know very specifically that happened in Orange County. And the hacker accessed the portal, created a client, the member did not have a portal account set up yet. The hacker accessed the portal, created an account for an individual that they were representing based on having gained personal information on that individual, and then attempted to make some changes to the account, and that were subsequently caught and prevented from being implemented by system staff. And there was a significant law enforcement effort involving the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the FBI, and I believe even Interpol. They arrested someone in the UK. So there are certain things that we let happen in the portal and things that we don't let happen in the portal. We don't let members change their banking information in the portal because of that.
Okay.
So if someone did go in and spoof and create a false account, they could see all the information there necessarily, but they couldn't change where the member's money is moving. We'd have to receive that in a written form still. So
That makes me feel a little better.
Anything else, any other direction on the record keeping? Do you feel a clear direction?
I do.
So that takes us to general board member discussion. Anything top of mind these days?
I'll just say that as a new board member, trying to look through the opportunities for training, I would take any advice from any of you, which somebody, the first time, it sounded like what you went to, Patrick, would be something that
I thought that
I
was very
should go
helpful.
to,
Yeah.
and that's not until later in the year. But I need to start at the basic level and work my way up.
When was that?
That was in August,
In August,
so that's a little ways
Yeah.
out.
One thing I didn't see on there was Stanford's Fiduciary College, which was where I started. And I'm assuming they're still offering it.
That is this Pepperdine program that I went to. They moved it from Stanford to
Okay.
Pepperdine.
Okay, it's fabulous.
That's good for first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, other conferences, if you go in, you will start to get into it. So I wouldn't wait until
Mhm.
something comes up close to a year
Well,
out.
just looking at like what Lee and Catherine went to, I think that's above my head. I mean, you're financial advisor guys, so, so I'm just trying to narrow it down to something that would really be helpful, so.
And one thing good about SACRS is everything.
Okay.
It talks about disabilities, it talks about finances, investments, all that. It's kind of an overall.
Mhm.
Callan's really good, but it tends to be more investments in
Right.
economics,
Right.
but it's very, very good.
Yeah, okay.
So, but they're all good. They're all good, yeah.
And SACRS is coming up real fast.
Yeah, can you tell us about that? We're not, I know we've been invited to go, but, can you tell us about that?
The fiduciary
About
conference?
SACRS.
About the
SACRS.
SACRS conference coming up?
The person to tell you about it is Catherine, because she's actually on the board, but it goes at length into investments, but it does teach you, how to look at a disability retirement. I think the biggest thing that comes out of these conferences is what it actually means to be a fiduciary to the members of our and once you go through a training like that, it makes these votes real clear. What are we doing here? We're not standing necessarily for the taxpayers. We are fiduciaries to our members. And
So I just pulled up the agenda, make sure I'm looking at the right one. So on Tuesday from 3 to 5 is new/advanced trustee training 101 investments and roundtable.
Yes.
So that would be, so you've seen the agenda already? or-
I've seen that agenda,
Okay.
it's just I've got date conflicts with that
Okay.
particular conference.
In addition to SACRS, there's Calipers has a number of events. They have it's the General Assembly in March, which is like SACRS. It's a lot like SACRS. It'll cover a lot of different areas and have topical discussions. That's another good one in a similar vein.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a great list, thank you, Judy.
I'd like to take again this opportunity to thank you and Judy and the rest of your staff for putting on an excellent off-site event for the board.
Definitely.
It was
Thank you.
very, very useful, very profitable.
Yes, I agree.
And there will be follow-up to that, to the offsite, coming back and folding all of the projects and ideas that we talked about into the work plan. Just didn't get it all done in time to have it ready for this board meeting, so, but it's on the list.
And did all that without an out-of-town facilitator consultant.
That's right.
Congratulations.
We have our own
Excellent
personal facility,
facility. We do, indeed.
and the price is right.
Okay, that wraps up general board discussion. We then have one closed session item, disability retirement application. The board has met in closed session, and we are reporting out that the board,
You can do it.
reporting out that the board voted to deny the claim of Gail Sanders, Sheriff Services Technician, for a service-connected disability retirement application.
And the vote was unanimous.
Okay, right now, we're gonna adjourn at 9:40.
Whoa.
We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Mm.
2 weeks.